Okay, so this is gonna just be a commentary, like a post audio commentary of my Jack 2 any percent PB at the time of this, which also at the time happens to be the world record for Jack 2 any percent. And the gist of this commentary is that I want it to be like informative for the sake of learning kind of a little bit more about this run and the nuances that go into like the more high level play. That being said, I don't want it to be exclusively only like, I want it to be informative and helpful for people trying to get into the run. I know something a lot of people advise is to watch like, the top 10 times to kind of see how a lot of other runners do it who've been running for a while. And on top of that, I think it'd be nice just to have a little more in-depth breakdown of my run as an additional resource. So that's the goal of this commentary, just as, another resource. And what this won't be is it's not going to be like a detailed walkthrough of the any percent route. I'm going to just, I'm not going to pause the video or anything like that. I just want it to be like a quick thing. You can just go through the whole run so you kind of see it as it is, but then also have my extra stuff with it. So that being said, I'm just going to start the run and then I'll just kind of work through it as I go. So let's see here. Oh geez, that text is really small. Yeah, I want to have the chat visible because I want to be able to... Oh, hey Smashy, how's it going? And hey, just look, my chatty is being odd, so I just have the on-screen capture, so the full names won't be there, unfortunately. But how's it going, y'all? Good, glad to hear it. Yeah, I just want to chat as well because I want that to be able to, like, if anyone just pops up with a question, I'll just answer it as well. So that'll be there. I'm gonna go ahead and start the run now. Yeah, it should be doing the screen. I'm just doing this off of YouTube, so hopefully that'll be fine. So the run begins here. You start an escape. This is the most movement heavy part. It's a lot of rolling, timing, those kinds of things in spaces. The first minute is pretty different from the rest of the run, but it's pretty important. It's only about a minute long. A lot of little tricks already, things like that extended that I do there. Platform RNG is the thing there, so it won't be the same every time. So there's a little bit of adaptation you have to do. This is an optional strat. I do boosted there to skip a little corner. It's not required. I think it's like a 5-second time save, but it's really nice once you get more consistent with boosteds. And then a lot of dodge rolling, knowing how to cut these corners. A good time for this ground pound is anywhere around 40 seconds. I won't really talk about my little mental splits there, but yeah, this whole segment can be done in a lot of ways. That's the entire escape. Yeah, as you can tell, it's just a lot of rolling and timing of the jumps. This segment here is pretty consistent. All you need to remember is that there's a fixed number of guard spawns that happen here. And this is the only part in the run where we have Dark Jack. You're not really ever going to worry about collecting Dark Eco for this category or anything. Usually what I do here is I just do a spin or a punch spin combo here. You can actually hit the guard that drops down at the same time. For this cutscene, wiggle the analog stick while he's transforming. For whatever reason, it shortens the animation. And now we're looking for a zoomer spawn here. As you saw, I had average luck there. You can get it anywhere from right over your head as you begin playing, or far away. There's a trick where you can do this thing called camera tricking, where zoomers only spawn off camera. So if you just rotate the camera 360, occasionally you'll see one spawn by you. So that's another way you can save time. The current world record for any percent is 1 hour and 37 seconds, and that's this run. So I'm going to be talking over this one. Here is the first OOB. There's like this little hollow point there. Be careful here not to fall into the pit. That the edges there are ambiguous. It takes a little bit getting used to. You can even just do a double jump. I did a punch there, but that's a little riskier. This segment here, that's the second zoomer RNG. That can vary a little bit as well. Nothing fancy with that out of bounds. You just have to do a little short hop and then get over that. This is going to be the third zoomer RNG heavy component there. And when I say RNG, I'm just talking about randomness. I'll probably just say random instead, just to omit any like speedrun lingo that maybe isn't necessary. Mars Tomb Skip, which is this big percent warp, which is just a big sequence break we're going to be doing here. You can either do it from the left or right. I prefer the left. The right maybe is a little easier. You can do a slower setup. But for the most part, it's just about the timing on that little ramp. This second here, all I recommend is you just touch that second door. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and just do a mission reset and it brings you right here. I do an uppercut there to get over that wall. And then this portion, we're actually going to be heading towards the left-hand side. You're going to see these two pillars. And what I do here is I do little baby hops to get onto this tiny little area right here. You can tell you're on it, right? If your foot is like hovering maybe a half foot above the floor. It took me a while, but you see I eventually get it. And then you do a spin up that little thing just to get out of bounds. This portion is a little spooky because you have to go close enough to the door. As you see I kind of go under that little part to get that side loaded. But if you go too far, you might actually hit the dark eco, so just be a little careful there. There's a lot of setups for this jump. I won't really go into depth about it. There's several YouTube videos that I can actually link for that. But all you need to do is just time the roll there, which can be tricky because the floor there has some weird collision that can actually eat your roll jump there. So be mindful of that. This portion, you have to kind of learn to kind of anticipate what's going to happen here, like where all the gaps are. You don't want to punch constantly because sometimes it'll actually take you too far and you'll fall into pits, and you can't chain enough to where it's like the perfect distance. Maybe one extra punch is too much, so I kind of slow down. And this part is rubber banding, so be mindful that you want to be as optimal as you can for this first phase of the chase, because the spider will actually be keeping pace with you, so your pace determines it. And once you reach these webs, that stops, so you can actually take this as slow as you want. Don't worry about cutting corners the way I do. I don't really know why I do some risky stuff here. It's not entirely necessary, but it's just what I'm used to, so I do it. And of course, if you fall there, like you have to hit the second web, you don't really lose any time, so don't stress too much. And as you can tell, when you get to this point, she hasn't been rubber banding at all, so it takes a while. And then now we actually get the jet board here. So as a lot of you probably know about the hovering tech, similarly, there's a lot of tutorials on that, so I won't really go in depth here. The setup I do for this out of bounds, which takes you into the Tombstone room, is different from the way a lot of runners do it. I think it's easier because once you time getting out of bounds as you fall, you can do a spin to stabilize yourself so you don't go too far. And then from here, there's actually a series of patterns. So this, I don't have audio, unfortunately, so you won't be able to see won't be able to hear the pattern, but the gist is you listen for that first one that I hit, and then from there you can determine which pattern you get. Chaining punches here is optimal. And if you don't know why I'm mounting the jet board when I hit the Tombstone, the gist of that is that I'm just, it actually stops your inputs for a moment if you hit it and don't mount the jet board. So it's a little faster. You can just get moving right away. The second hover, or this hover I do here, is also semi-optional. You can also do extended front flips if you're not comfortable with this one, over to that little middle path and then back over. This cutscene takes a while, but just after that happens, you do a mission reset here to take you straight to the Baron fight. That way you don't... We used to do a death warp, but it's actually not optimal. And then for the Baron fight, spider spawns are RNG. So just kind of... Usually what I do is I go to one side, and then I just wait for them all to spawn, and then I just make the rounds to the other side and slowly pick them off as I go. Similarly with the bombs, what I do is I actually watch and see which side he shoots one on, and then I just go to that area so I can anticipate one of the soonest spawning bombs, because they are on a timer, and the faster you can hit them, the more likely you are to get a 5-hit which just carries over to the next phase, so it's always a little faster. I don't believe I get a cycle skip here. Sometimes, as you saw when he shot, if you kill him so fast that he doesn't finish that shooting phase, he'll actually just not even do a second one. This fight was actually not very optimal. I think my split time for this was an 8:20, which is about 10 or 15 seconds off of like kind of my average, like a low 8. So there was a lot of time to save in the first portion here. This is probably the weakest split of the whole run. Actually, I lose about 20 seconds to my gold, but usually you try to play that off. Bad Baron times can still yield really good times, as you can tell. I just kept running with this. I think I was behind my comparisons by about 10 seconds, but you know, that's just how Baron goes. I ended up getting the 5 hit for the second phase, so that was really nice, which saved a little bit of time here, and I got some lucky spawns. You generally can just skip every cutscene. Some people advise against, you know, mashing the cutscenes, which I also similarly, maybe there's something to that because the game will crash occasionally if you overload it with stuff or inputs. There's a lot of optional hovers here. Just go up the elevator like this. I had to reset that because my angle was so bad that I knew I was just going to hit the wall and I actually wouldn't make it into that door. So I had to reset it there. And this thing I started doing recently is I started prepping side flips into open doors so that, you know, I don't have to like punch board out of them and then, you know, lose that tiny bit of time to having to mount the jet board after you can already leave. How much time would you lose RNG in average full run of this category? This category luckily does not have a significant amount of RNG. Baron being the biggest part, and then after that, Zoomer spawns, enemy movement in some parts will actually kind of mess you up, maybe, and then guard spawns, they'll spawn sometimes like exactly where you don't want them to be, and you'll collide with them on the jet board. When you hit guards with your jet board, it's likely you take damage and you're dismounted from the board. So I try really hard to not ever touch them, and you'll see me do like crouch jumps, which give you more height over them to avoid them, or just like cut corners differently. From here, we visit Torn's Hut every now and then. That's this place, so it's just as like, you know, a place where a lot of narrative happens. I believe I got a host. I don't have my alerts up, but I appreciate who hosted me. I also don't have chatty up, so I can't really tell. A lot of stuff today was being a little buggy, so I'm kind of working with what I got. Yo, Tub, how's it going, man? So yeah, as you saw, I had a little mishap there. Oh, thanks, Tub, for the host. You can get those ammo crates there if you're not comfortable with ammo. You need it for bomb bots. So this hover here, the way I set up is once I cross the wall, I count 8 hovers and then I drop, because that puts you right about here. So I count hovers there to kind of know exactly where, as it's a little blind. This clip is a little spooky. I do a front flip and then make sure to dismount so I can actually catch that pipe. And then once you're on that leftermost side, you can do a single spin, and it's really easy. And then you can just drop down into that clip. Similarly, you can just go through the door and then just, you know, jump over to where the other door opens. The only reason I do that is because it saves a half second, because you actually don't get the door to open. You don't have to wait for the door to open, but it's a tiny optimizer. But that's how you do it if you're curious for later on, if you want to incorporate it. This isn't necessarily a submission run. This is just like sort of an explanatory commentary on the run, just as like a cool resource, and then just to talk about my PB. That hover saves about 7 seconds. This area lags a lot, so that sometimes will drop the hover. Hovers are susceptible to lag. So it's not about tapping too fast or too slow. It's just knowing how much you need to get whatever height you're going for. It's not faster to tap faster as well. Your speed is determined by, like, as you leave the ground, that's like your speed. The escort mission here, speaking of RNG, this is going to be one of the other ones, because this is where spider spawns will matter. In the ambush coming up, you don't know which side they're going to spawn in this little area pretty soon, so basically you just have to adapt and kind of keep track. I stand near them right there because that triggers the next audio cue that Jinx has, where he's like, oh, there you are, because if you start it here, the ambush won't begin until he says that, so it's like another half second that you just end up waiting, where you can just trigger it faster or earlier. The way I stand here is the reason I do this is because if you spin and jump, you can actually auto target 2 of the spawn points. So if they keep spawning in those 2 areas, he's actually going to be picking them off with his like autopilot as they spawn. So I got really lucky there. I only had a single spawn on the other side, so he actually picked most of them off with my spin shoots. Hey Rayo, thanks for the luck. Here I do 2 roll jumps and I tank that hit and then just go really fast because I want to kill those 2 up ahead so that you skip a scripted ambush behind them. We are going for goal. Yeah. Let's see here. Hey Piggle, how's it going, man? You don't want to cross this little the edge of the water here. Keep one of your feet in the water here, because if you're too far, I'm like on the threshold where the mission ends because of like the auto fail if you get too far from the people. And then I just wait for them to spawn and I just shoot them with blue because it's a little faster. Once that happens, you can just go all the way to the end after you've killed those 2, and you kind of give it a half second so that they start walking. The lasers there are a little spooky. You don't have to do that part necessarily very fast. From what I understand, the faster you kill those 2 pairs of 3, that sort of initiates them to walk. So I think there is a bit of optimization there the faster you kill them. And then after that, it's really just waiting here for all 3 of them to stand there. You're waiting for Mog because he's the last one and he's really slow and you can't do anything to accelerate him, so you just sit here. Usually I stand here and I mash triangle because the moment he steps there, the cutscene starts. You need to stand with them because if you're too far from them, it's also waiting for you. So don't stand like over where I'm standing here now because this cutscene won't trigger. I use blue for the majority of this fight because, yo, thank you for the luck. Oh yeah, Ness, how's it going, man? So then for this part, you don't want to spam the blue. You only need 4 shots for each spider. So see a spider, point at him and get the 4 shots and then kind of stop and do little bursts. That way you're using as few bullets as you need before you have to resort to yellow, because yellow is not consistent. You're jumping and spinning and not every shot lands, and you need as much yellow as you can for bomb bots. Here I wait a second. I stick with them here. I don't go too fast because you can auto fail here if you go right to the end immediately after the fight ends. And that was a really good ambush, actually. I only used about like 20 or so yellow bullets. So this segment actually was off my gold by maybe 2 or 3 seconds. And then I just do a reset warp to get back to the door. It's, I think, like a half second faster to actually cross this door like threshold and then just punch back and get on there instead of just like waiting for the door to reclose. For whatever reason, it's just faster because it triggers this top door to open as you arrive at it instead of like a half second later. Oh, we started watching GDQ VODs. Yeah, I feel that. Feels procrastination, man. I do that all the time. For this segment, similarly, I just dodge a lot of guards. For the most part, I got really good like guard spawns. I didn't really hit too many, so that was nice. And for bomb bots, this segment here, it's not RNG, but it can vary a lot. You have to learn to adapt because I'm gonna go for these quick kills. And also those are ammo crates. They give you a bunch of ammo. You can go for that 4th one too if you want, but I didn't need it because you saw how little yellow I used. And that other crate I skipped is more yellow, in case you're wondering. So, which is pretty important. You want about 100 for this because you use about 30 per bomb bot optimally. So sometimes if it goes wrong, you just want to get fixed under him and try to do like little short spin jumps, which the melee does a lot of the heavy lifting for these because there's no iframes, and as you spin, you're just doing it a bunch of damage. And then you can just do your spam spray, which when you're under him, most of the bullets are going to touch them, so that's just extra help. If you can't get fixed under him, which is a little hard, it is tricky, what you do is just punch them and then shoot and then follow them. So just punch, shoot into like their center. Punching the legs actually gives you a recoil and will send you backwards, so be careful not to punch the legs. This is my PB run, the hour 37 WR, so I'm talking over it as like a commentary. Here I opt for a zoomer simply because for whatever reason the movement here is a lot cleaner when you get on a zoomer. So I usually do that instead of jetboarding. There's just too much stuff happening in this area, so it's not consistent. I think I got pretty much the quick kill on every single one of these. The third one's finicky because you're dealing with weird terrain here. So sometimes when you jump and try to get fixated in him, you'll actually get like bounced away from him because you'll clip one of these little rough terrain like ledges. So I'm more careful for the third, and kind of like won't be surprised if I lose the quick kill. This is a Zoomer RNG segment. Usually I just mount the jetboard and I just get going right to the next part as soon as I kill the third, because and you can look for a zoomer spawn anywhere along this area, so you don't really lose much time if you don't get an immediate one. I happen to get one really quick, so it's just convenient. The clip here doesn't require any special setup. Just try to not bonk on the sides, and then as you leave the clip, veer to the left a little bit because the tree is actually like directly in front of you, so don't just go straight. You'll probably hit the tree. So you saw I kind of tilted to the left at the very end, which of course not too much, of course, because then you'll hit other stuff. Just like, you know, finesse it a little bit. I always hop over the one on the right there just to get over him so I can cut that corner faster and I'm not like in the center of the NPCs, because the NPCs in lap 1 and 5 are problems. The jump I did there was the easier of the 2 lap skips. It saves maybe a second. Which over the course of 5 laps, it's actually like a 5 or so second time save. So if you're comfortable with that easy one, just go for it. It's like free 5 seconds. Yeah, you can also see the more advanced one here, which I do for laps 2 and 4. I go around this way, and then when I can see between those 2 pillars, I do the boost jump over that. Boost management is... I do the same boost every time in the most consistent areas. On the straightaways, you'll see me do boosts. On this corner, I'll do a boost, and I'll be doing the short hops to cut the corners. When you do boosts, I don't think holding the throttle makes you go any faster. So if you want to maneuver better, when you get the boost, what I do is I boost and I just let go of my actual throttle, because then you actually get better handling. So on this corner here, I hit the boost, I boost, and then I let go of the stick and then the throttle, and I tilt to the side, and you can get sharper turns. And then if I see NPCs around me, sometimes I opt to do the easier one instead of the more advanced, because they can like T-bone you as they cut that corner and they will blow you up. And also, don't do the jumps the same time they do the jumps. If someone's like right in front of you, like I just brake and I let them go through it first, because they're really bad and they'll like hit the pillars and blow up, and that can kill you. So you saw I wanted to make sure I bypassed that guy, and when I was kind of comfortable he was behind me, I just did the jump. Get killed randomly, but NPC appears in front of me. Yeah, that's the problem, is that sometimes they'll just take the normal route and they're going straight as you're doing a hard turn, so they'll just collide with you. You can use the mini map to keep track of them. I just don't risk it ever, because I've lost too many runs in the name of like a single second time save. Zoomer RNG here, also not a big deal. You have all the way up until that corner right in front of me to snag a zoomer, or else you're in hot water, because now you hit the canals. There's like a really kind of risky but little time step where you actually hover over this. Don't worry about that. I actually don't even do it. I'm not consistent with it, but I'll probably incorporate that at some point. Yo, Dark Junk, what's going on, man? So then here, learning how to just weave between these cars. You can take that a little slower, don't have to hit the throttle the whole time. Here I let go of the throttle a little bit just to give me that turn, and then once you initiate the turn, I just reinitiate the throttle. And when I cross that little side pillar on the right that you saw, I just reset, because after that you've crossed the checkpoint enough. And then here, just go turn around, cut this corner, and then the moment I leave that little square, I got trolled really hard here. I played it a little safe. The moment you leave that square and you're in between that square and that little vent, you can reset anywhere. It's actually like pretty forgiving. I'm just doing like a little quick commentary on my any percent PV. That's just kind of like not really a tutorial, but just like an informative thing. You want to be careful here. If you're too far to the left during that hover, you can bonk on this wall and it'll just stop your forward momentum entirely. So don't do so just be careful. I was trying to land in this room as it spawned. I messed up and I landed inside the wall, so I actually had to leave and then just go back inside. If you're in the wall, there's a chance if you try to re-enter the room without going through the door, you'll get clipped into one of those cabinets, and those won't let you out. You're like trapped forever, so don't do that. And then just a lot of places I'll do like tiny little hovers just to like cut corners. The arrow race here is, I think in my PB it went as good as I could have asked it. I think I was like barely off of gold. I try to clip these rings as close as I can inside the turns, and then I watch out for people. I defer to avoiding NPCs before optimization. So if I cut a corner but it raises the risk of me bonking on these NPCs, I'll just avoid them to play it safe, because it barely saves time, and if you hit NPCs you lose a lot more time. So there's like a tiny bit of RNG there. Also, like the whole randomness about whether or not the pedestrian you hit will be solid, which you don't know until you've hit them. So that's a thing to keep in mind. I don't even try to hop over them because I've hit them there anyways. It's too hard to time. I just avoid them entirely. If Errol catches up to you, like if you bonk and then Errol gets near you, you'll probably pass him up again. His rubber banding makes it so that you like it makes him like beatable even if he's ahead of you, because he'll slow down a bit. The game tries to give it to you, you know. Be careful to hit the rings on the edges, because any of these rings you can hit them and just re-get them and you lose about 10 seconds and you can still probably win. But if you miss the ones on the ledges, you can't go back up, so you're in trouble. So at the very least, try your best to hit the ones like before the jumps. I get kind of rattled around by some NPCs for the most part, but this is actually, I think it's like a 157 that I get here, so it was good. Yeah, I'm gonna upload this to YouTube as well, just because another place you can find it and stuff. I brake here so that turn is sharper. If you take it too hard, you will just kind of get rammed into the wall. That was a 156. So I was actually I golded that split in my PB, so that was good. Here I got another spawn. Oh yeah, you get to be in the video. Hi YouTube. Yeah, I hope this is helpful. Yeah, if you're starting like Tub, just like something like this gives you little tips as you go through. Guards can be really trolly here. I usually trigger a guard here because I always bonk them, but the more you bonk, the slower you are, and that, you know, every bonk adds up, so just be careful. Hey YouTube. For life seed, what I used to do is I used to stop and I just used to aim. I used to like manually aim myself before triggering the hover, or before starting the hover, and I just look between the two windows on the little wall. Here I just do like 3 or 4 side flips until I land in the water, and I always start the hover in that water, because if you go too far, all the ground is like round and really weird, so sometimes if it'll eat your momentum and your hover will be like either super slow or it'll be like just going straight up because you have like no momentum. There's a platform down here, you can always just punch off there. You can also stop and set this up. My reference is I just try to aim anywhere on that middle like support beam. I just aim for that support beam so I can go right over it, because that way you know you'll cross the loading zone. Whenever you do these big hovers, when you drop the hover, I wait as long as I can before I spin, because like you'll never splat if you just dismount the jetboard and then fall. But the moment you spin, the game starts looking for how high you are and then will splat you. So if you spin close to the ground, you won't splat. Get any findings from having jump on the hover bikes and how it affects your speed? Unfortunately, I tested it. For the most part, it seems like the handling and depending on how you were tilted forward or backwards would actually give you like a slowdown. I think if you do it like perfectly every time, you'll get like a little boost, but it's like incredibly precise. So I'm not sure if it can actually be incorporated like RTA. But I think the premise is there and it makes sense. Just punch towards that ramp the moment you do that hover, and then you know you loaded Onin. Something I used to do a lot is I wouldn't do that, and then I would go here and Onin's tent's not loaded, and you can't trigger the cutscene, so you'd be like okay, like where is it? And you have to go back and start it. You don't want to go too fast for this part. I slow down as I go around that corner, because as you can see, I barely clear the invisible wall. If you're going super fast, you're going to hit the wall every time. But don't don't like panic, because if you just keep hovering straight up, you'll go straight up and hug the wall, and then when you go high enough, you can dismount and then just fall forward and you'll probably clear the wall. So don't just like stop the hover. You can always try to make it. I'm gonna only do this for the stream because I actually don't have time for the other one. I needed to start early till I could do this, but then the 5.5 hour cutscene run will be later in the week, as kind of a substitute for one of my all mission grinds. Yeah, unfortunately, so I'm really sorry about that, but I wanted to get this incentive done today because this was like part of that, so I could honor that at the least. These crates give you ammo. It's not really necessary because you can farm a lot of ammo for the next part. Hey Bravo man, what's up man? You know what, I didn't change my stream title, so that, sorry about that for everyone viewing. I meant to just put it as the commentary, but anyways, this hover is tricky. You don't want to bonk on trees, so although trees only have collision about halfway up, so if you're like going towards one, occasionally you'll still pass through them, but the more you do it, you can kind of get a feel for the aim because there's a lot of trees. This fight is just scripted. I stand here, and as they feed in, I shoot them. It doesn't matter how fast you shoot them. It's all scripted. The only thing that matters is like how fast you kind of do away with the last wave, because that's the one that waits for you, waits until that's done, and then the cutscene starts. And then even that, there's sort of a threshold. Like if you kill them super fast, you'll stand by Samos, and it just won't even start for like 5 seconds because there's still some weird timer that it waits for anyways, like a global timer. I try to pick up as much ammo as I can, and I try to melee as many as I can because I don't want to spend ammo here. I just want to max out everything. And the reason is because I'm waiting for Peacemaker drops, which are the lowest priority spawn for ammo. So it waits until everything else is satisfied, and then it thinks like, oh, you're low on Peacemaker, I'll start spawning that. I stop fighting the foot soldiers as soon as I can see the flyers, because the moment the flyers like get too far away, they can get stuck like under that platform and just fly around, and the longer you wait, the harder it gets. So just kill them as fast as you can, usually with spin jumps and like the spam spray. As you can tell, everything else is more or less maxed out. The moment I get 5 Peacemaker shots, which maxes that out because you have 5 to begin with, I just kind of stop caring, and you can actually rely on yellow a little bit more to kill these as fast as you can. That guy avoids me, and I have to kind of go on that ledge to find him, and luckily he didn't give me a lot of problems. And then this is the last phase, so all these guys will spawn. I kill these 2 dudes as fast as I can. There's 2 on that side, and then 2 going up the ramp here after you kill the last phase. They're always going to be like 2 and 2, so I run down that ramp, and then I kill the last 2 as they're climbing up just to make sure they die as fast as I can. This was pretty optimal. It was only like a second off my gold. So I just stand there, wait, and then when you see that little cutscene, you can just reset. Do I use the uppercut as a melee action or just for higher jump? I use the uppercut mostly as for higher jumps. I don't rely on uppercut like almost ever as like a melee attack. Okay, so what happened here is don't do what I did here where I stand on the edge. Because if he can actually slowly slip and then fall off and then die. So try to make sure you're in the center of the platform. That was kind of risky of me. For this ghost town, I count 11 hovers, and then I drop, and then I wait until he's kind of like horizontal with the camera, and then I dismount, and that's like usually pretty perfect, and I land right on that invisible slope. If you saw that little piece of like strip that was kind of at eye height of Jack, you can get stuck in that, so don't like jump into it, just kind of slide underneath it. It slows you down. Be careful, you don't have to do anything special for that jump, just do like a crouch jump, because if you do a front flip, you'll probably not fall, and you'll clear the gap and land in here, which if you do, don't think, oh, I'll just go to Brother. You'll hard lock the game or soft lock the game if you touch Brother when you're ghost towned. So just do a mission reset, and then I think it takes you just to Brother. Don't ever like touch him when you're ghost towned. For this part, This is just like a really long driving portion. It's the longest driving portion. This is the more advanced strat where I do the mission storage for the lurker mission. So I keep the lurkers active, as you can tell, but I do 2 other missions in between, which are in Vin's lab, which you can kind of do whenever at, within reason at this stage. So I do them now so that I can just not have to do this drive all the way back, and I just do a mission reset. And the reason it's more advanced is because that's contingent on the fact that you don't die in these 2 missions. You don't want to die for these 2 missions. So for the most part, and then punchboarding into here is optional. I kind of messed it up. That loses you about a second. I kind of brush it off. It's a tiny thing. In the first mission here, you can take this as slow as you want, line it up, do whatever you need to do. I pan the camera like that because Pickleberry, he explained to me that the camera pans a little faster when you're zoomed in. I think there really is something to that. It's like a small thing, but just be mindful. And also, if the camera's higher up as you pan, I think it does go a little faster because it's not really moving as much. If you don't trigger the cutscene the moment as you're hovering, because that's a little hard to aim, just land on the ramp that you're supposed to be on, and then mount the jet board, and then just go into the cutscene intended. You don't need to hit the cutscene as you go up. This segment kind of went pretty straightforward. There's a significant RNG portion coming up where the lurkers at the very end, or the metalheads, will be positioned differently. And I'll explain that in a moment. I hug the edges of these fire platforms, except for this part, but coming up I do, because the hitbox for the fire doesn't damage you on the edges. I kind of wanted to kill that guy before I went to that platform, because sometimes as you jump onto it, he'll hit you and that'll recoil you into the pit. I've died so many times in this portion here alone. This is probably the scariest part. You can just do baby hops to clear most of these. This one, no, you have to just full throttle. And then here I do little baby hops, with a bit of a boost to make sure I cleared. But yeah, health management here isn't a big deal. I had enough health to not really worry. The lasers barely do anything. You don't want to go into the terminal room with a quarter health, because you will lose maybe about a half health, depending. This door triggers, it's you want to just immediately go perpendicular towards it, because the closer you are, that'll open. So I don't really go diagonal towards it, because that's slow. Here I do a punch as I take a step out from the door. I don't really wait too long, because his punches are really long, so you'll probably hit it. And then I try to blow up these terminals before he jumps off, because as you can tell, the moment they're on the ground, Jack always aimbots them with the mech suit. So I just want to keep them away from me, and also if they're on me, try to do what I can before they jump off, because he doesn't aimbot them as they're standing on you. Hey Sharky, this is a recorded run that I'm providing commentary over. You can jetboard off of that thing, because the moment that elevator immediately opens, so just don't waste any time. Just get on the jetboard and go over here. I wait for the flame cycles here. So basically I wait a second for the flame to, I wait, see, I mounted too early. I wait for them to go in about a second, and then I do the side flip to prep over them, and I get a little trolled by lasers. I take the easier strat where I just do that corner. I don't do a front flip over that gap. It's too spooky and doesn't save enough time to justify it. I was really nervous here because I was about 14 seconds ahead of my PB, so I just took all that slow. And then I hover up this thing. And a good time for this is you want to hit that door maybe at about 49 seconds optimally. Actually, I don't even do communicator skip in this run because it's on English, and I've started doing the Japanese version because communicator skip is pretty consistent. You just punch into the cutscene, and then once it ends, just punch right into the portal and mash triangle. You'll usually get it. It also, it's dependent on when you skip the cutscene. So wait for the fire ring to like hit the edges of the screen in that cutscene and then skip. I'm not going to do runs after this, unfortunately, because my schedule today got a little congested. So I'm just going to do this because I wanted to do this today because, you know, I want this out there and as part of the incentive and then just to kind of have it. But everything else, like the cutscene run, will happen this week. Yeah, I'm sorry, Tub. Today was weird. And then, as you can see, when you leave Vin's lab, just do the mission reset the moment the mini-map pops up on the screen, because as that happens, the game is like, okay, you're in the overworld. So then it gives you the lurker checkpoint again. This part, I rely on blue just because the rate of fire is faster, and you need 5 bullets regardless. Like, the yellow gun does more damage, but here it doesn't care about that. It just counts to 5, and then it blows it up. So the blue is appropriate. I shoot that guy as soon as I can because it like kind of increases the car's speed by maybe 25 or so %. So if you shoot it, it'll just like it'll gun it and go for the thing faster. And then this is a commentary on my PB, the 137. And you saw I actually don't even pick up the second lurker. I just get him to follow me until he de-aggroes me and aggroes the vent, because it's just slower. You don't have to go down a hover zone. You don't have to wait for him to jump on you, which is like kind of RNG. Sometimes they jump on it immediately, and then sometimes they just like don't. This one, it's pretty basic. What I do here is I actually try to go as fast as I can around this corner because the other one's loaded and it's going, and I want to try to shoot it in such a manner that it gets a little bit of a boost into the vent, because that way he just immediately aggroes it. You can actually get him to aggro at the moment he hits the ground. I had to wait a half second there because he wasn't aggroed on the portal, so I had to kind of lure him. This part, I always wait for this guy to hit the corner. It's convention, a lot of runs do it, to wait until that one enters that corner a bit, for 2 reasons. One, because then you never have to worry about the boost sending them into the water, which always auto fails the mission. Never have them go into the water. I take the canal route here because it's a little slower, and I intentionally slow myself down because that way you give the other car enough time to enter this region. Sometimes if you go too fast here, you spawn a bunch of cars. This is my theory. You spawn a bunch of cars around it sooner, and that actually causes it to get clogged right about here, and it gets stuck there, and it's really hard to unclog him from like the mess of cars that spawns there if you enter that area too quick. So you want him to be near the vent already by the time you cut that corner. And then similarly, you do the clip, you tilt to the left a bit to avoid the tree and stuff. That ended up going really well. I lost about 4 or 5 seconds to RNG, or to randomness, which can't be helped. It was definitely still completely acceptable. A good split there is like a low 3 minutes. I think that was like a 3:05 or something. So this part, I don't even throttle the moment the race starts here, because you want to get behind them all so that you can cut that corner easier and get into the shortcut immediately. Sometimes they'll bonk you and push you forward to the point where you can't even reach the shortcut anymore, so I don't even mess with it. This part, I usually brake as soon as I hit the end of the arrows there, because if you go too fast, you can't even turn sharp enough and you'll hit the wall on the left. So I brake a little bit there. I'm going for double boosts in that first corner, so if you swing really wide, sometimes you raise your surface area of the bike that's actually hitting the boosts, and you can snag a second one. I get it maybe twice in this race, I think. It wasn't optimal. But similarly, it was acceptable. I tried to actually jump because I was in the middle, and I tried to snag the middle one and then jump into the other one, but I did it too early, so I just get the interior one. And then I miss a boost here, which was annoying because you should never do that. Just be careful to aim and hit them. I think you lose about a second or a half second every time you don't get a boost. Yo, Jazz, what's up, man? And Yeah, I don't think I get a single double boost here, which was kind of a bummer. That's maybe about maybe 2.5 to 3 seconds worth of just like missing out there. But the race is the same every time. The only NPC trouble you'll ever get here is usually you start to lap people right here as you happen to be going through this really tight shortcut, which is really lame because they're all in there and they're hitting you, and then this kind of stuff happens. You'll leave the shortcut with them all and be kind of in the pack for this entire final lap, and they will just push you into the trench. Stuff like this happens. You get knocked into the trenches. Actually, what was my split time for this one? My gold is 2:43 and I get a 2:48. So it wasn't perfect. It wasn't bad. I don't even skip the so for this part, I'll say first, you get this palace security text here immediately after ending that part. So as you're looking for a zoomer, make sure to know that whole trick about hit the select button, unselect it, and then mount a zoomer, because otherwise your prompt to mount zoomers won't appear until that text disappears. And it's just like a little trick you only use, I think, once in the whole run here. You're gonna be aggroed pretty hardcore for most of the drive to the next reset warp, so they're going to be both using their ammunition and cars will be chasing you, so be pretty careful. I got really good RNG for the most part because they de-aggroed me for one about maybe 3/4 of the way through, and I got a good zoomer spawn at the start. So the longer you are on the ground, the more vulnerable you are to getting shot, so you can actually be careful not to die when you're looking for a zoomer, because that's usually when you're most vulnerable, and when you're surrounded by Crimson Guards, because they all spawn near you after that cutscene. And these are the same reset warps, so nothing special with that. For Explore Palace, there are 2 ways you can do this part. The way, no time, etc. Yeah, well, I'm just gonna be sticking to this right now. Just the commentary, and then that'll be it for the stream. Don't ever watch the cutscene here, because there's a cutscene trigger about 5 or so feet into the room, as if you go down that carpet. And if you do that, this trick will hardlock, because for whatever reason, when you skip those zones after, I think it's because the cutscene loads areas, and then if you skip that loading area, the game doesn't know what to do. This part, you can get unlucky here. There's always an inherent risk with the way I do it that you get shot. It's so rare that I don't even worry about it. There's videos on the other methods, so just those are all available on the SRC page. You don't need a zoomer spawn here. It is optimal, I think, because you're not on flat ground the whole time. You're going across these things. You're going across the water, which will weirdly sometimes eat your boosts on the water. The terrain is different, so a zoomer is just consistent speed the whole time. Be careful not to accidentally mount vehicles when you're going towards this carrier, because the carrier prompt to enter looks the same as getting on a vehicle prompt, so be careful. I started doing this new setup here, which actually was really spooky. I don't know if I had to reset that. I did, because that was really left, and I ran the risk of bonking pretty hard, which was scary, because resetting the trick sometimes will give you trouble. I actually ended up getting lucky, but I lost, a modest amount of time to not getting it right the first time. For this part, robo skip, I wait for the guards to spawn there. Robo skip is really weird. Oh, actually, yeah, this is probably the weakest split, to be honest, because I miss a lot of stuff, and then I have to go up this little trapdoor manually like that, and it's really sketchy because I couldn't really see it, and I was hoping I would go up into it. You can clip into it from below if you just hover into it. And I skipped that split because I was frustrated, but yeah, this part is, I try to do the same movement every time. I beeline it. Well, I jetboard the crates there so that they do their whole auto, like the ammo, once you break a crate, the ammo will always fly to you immediately, even after that crate respawns. It's like a bug in the code. And I beeline it for the edge there, and I try to knock as many of them as I can over the edge as they spawn because they're all already there, which is just, it saves ammo and it's a little faster because then you don't have to shoot them twice. And I make the rounds in the circle, and I make sure to like not lose track of spawns, because sometimes one will be like on the other side and you'll have to like chase it around, because they'll like follow you and they'll sometimes just try to go through the silo and just be like stuck in the silo. Here I stay on the edge here and I look out for any spawns that I can happen to snag early and then just knock into the edge. Sometimes they spawn in such a way where you can't really do it, and setting up a setup to knock them over the edge is just slow. You might as well just shoot them twice. It's all adaptation. This fight can go a bunch of different ways. And then this is where I use my Peacemaker ammo on core or on crew. Some people will save it for core because it does make the core fight a lot easier. I think it makes the crew fight a lot easier, and I think the difference between the two, it's not conclusive which one is quote unquote faster, but they're really similar. You can get faster crew times with this, but you can get slower crew times or core times without it. So it's a balance. This one, the last phase, it goes, I think 20, 25, 30 for the spawns. So you add 5 spawns every phase. Usually this one, it's more about watching and keeping tabs on spawns and not really trying to do like the whole edge shoot. And just making sure, similarly, you don't lose track of one. He takes 4 hits for the final phase. He takes 3 hits for the first 2 phases. So keep that in mind. Well, for Peacemaker, and then double that number for the yellow, because the yellow is half the strength. So it takes 8 for the last one and then 6 for the others. Here, this is the metalhead mash. You can just trigger this cutscene the moment, or if you hug the left wall and then move towards the corner where the metalhead mash arcade game is inside, the bubble for the cutscene extends outwards into the overworld, so you can just do this. The metalhead mash isn't random. These patterns spawn the same every single time, and you just have to watch. Just all you have to do here is just try your best not to hit reds. This isn't like Fish in Jack 1 where you can get different number of golds and others. So it's just about it's just about being careful. Yo, Lil Jeno, what's up? How's it going? Hey, Mr. Joma. Clappa. So there isn't much to say about this part. I think it's straightforward. I don't hit any reds. I'm just being really careful. I didn't have comparisons for this part because I skipped a bunch of slits, but I knew I was ahead. I couldn't tell by how much. I think by about 10 at this point. Yo, John Day, what's up? There is sort of like an accelerated phase near the end where you have to be quick to hit them all, because sometimes, hey, Mike Game hosted me at this point in the run. Thanks, Mike. So for this segment here, be a little quick. You can actually, you can miss some if you're not going fast enough. And be prepared to know when like the huge spawns happen, like the really fat spawns. Just be ready for those so that you can just get ready to see where they are and then just hit them as fast as you can. I said it's not random, and what I mean is like each wave has the same proportion of, grays, golds, and reds, but where they spawn on those, like that grid, is different within each phase. So that's why you have to, be careful and adapt a tiny bit. Thank you for the host, whoever did. I actually don't have chatty up and I can't see the alerts, so I apologize that I can't thank you personally, but I appreciate it. Underport skip. There's like, I have a pretty in-depth tutorial on how this trick works, so I won't explain it here in depth. I had a run like yesterday that got to this part on the same pace, and I actually got hit by a metalhead behind me, and it knocked me into the elevator door, and it killed the run. So I was like kind of nervous there. I'd never had that happen before, so that was kind of funny. Nothing bad happens in this whole part. I think my underport was actually pretty good for the most part. I tied my PV, which was at the time, which was fine. This part, you just want to solve these puzzles as fast as you can, because that is influenced by, like, that does influence when Sig will talk and then start walking towards the door. He just waits for you to solve the puzzle. You can just do the hops on the platforms if you want there. It's probably easier. I hate the platforming for this section, so I just do a front flip over to the side. I give it a sec though, because sometimes if you front flip over there either too high or too fast, the metalpede will like try to cut the corner with you, and he'll get stuck, and he'll soft lock because he'll never move again. So I keep that in mind. I just stick to yellows here. If you knock one of those crates flush against that back wall, you can't push it back. There's no way to actually hit it back the other way, so you have to wait for them to blow up. So you lose a lot of time. So don't overshoot. Like, don't spam shoot to push them towards that wall, because if you hit them one too many, you're gonna lose a lot of time. This part, I don't try to catch those early platform cycles. There's no point, because you're now you're just waiting for Sig to reach the end, which is the same every time, except for this platform. Just hit that one as fast as you can. But for the most part, it doesn't matter how fast you get there. You're going to be following Sig. You'll see me do this thing, which I haven't really brought up, but I always zoom in the moment I hit elevators, because the camera, that way you don't have to wait for the camera to like follow you into the door. It just immediately goes in, and that's what the game does to know to start the elevator to move. It waits for the camera to like get close enough. So I just do a zoom to like just get it going immediately. It saves maybe like a quarter, maybe even less than a quarter of a second every time you do it. But you enter so many airlocks in this game that it adds up. This is like the final drive to like the ending stretch of the run. All you have to do is just be careful. I take a guard zoomer here because there's this conventional superstition in the run where, for whatever reason, it feels safer because there's a common hard lock going towards the stadium here, and I don't think there's no way to conclusively prove any hard lock really, but for whatever reason, this one is like empirically observed to be more consistent with the guard zoomer. That's what I'm gonna say about that hard lock. I'm not gonna deny that this influences it, but I'm also not gonna recommend you have to look for a guard zoomer. I just do, because whatever. It's really just about learning to drive and how to avoid stuff. At this point in the game, there are invisible metalheads on the ground. They're cloaked, so be careful to not hit them. I just stay off the ground as much as I can. And really, that's all there is to this. I think my end game in this run was really strong. I didn't really lose any time to anything. My defense stadium was fine. Except for the core fight, I lose a little bit of time. But yeah, I just thread the needle here. At some point, I just know that when I dismount, I'll land right on the cutscene, so I just do that. It's a little faster. And then for this part, the spawns, where and what spawns and how many is pretty consistent. That's like kind of scripted. I know little scorpions spawn right there, so I just immediately point forward with my blue and I pick them off as they come. And then right around here, up the stairs, big ones will spawn and they'll start making their way down the stairs, but it takes forever, so I don't even look at them or try to pick them off, because I'm likely gonna miss, for one, because so I don't even waste ammo. I wait for them to get right up next to me, and then I'll just pick them all off, when they're behind me, and I know they're there because I'm looking at the minimap. The frogs here are probably the most problematic section, because as you can see, they'll hop right in between the Samoses, and sometimes you don't even have any time to react and kill them before they hit the Samos. So that part's a little tricky. I usually will just do spin jumps as I pass by that fountain, because that's the only way to hit them before they touch Samos. But luckily, I didn't have that happen whatsoever, so this part was good. I lost time in this split because I took a while to find the guard zoomer, which to this day I kind of regret doing. I shouldn't have even cared about that. I should have just taken a normal zoomer or something, but whatever. I only get one hit there. I don't even know how much time it loses to have Samos take a hit. Now that they're funneling in behind me, no more spawn in front of you, so I just stand here, and as they funnel in, I just keep them away from the Samoses. There's no kill quota for this mission. You just wait for the thing to touch the platform. And And then here, last little bit of RNG, take whatever zoomer you can find. I happened to find one there, and I actually got that spawn super late. That was kind of sketchy. And then beeline it for construction site. Same principle. Invisible lurkers, stay on the upper hover zone if you can. And then I just take this all the way down to the industrial district. There's like there's a lot of like weird ambiguity about like certain overworld hovers that can save time here. A lot of them are really fishy and really precise, and I kind of want to start incorporating them. There's some Dex, a really good runner who's found a lot of like cool time savers, has a numerous examples of these little tricky hovers. So they're online. I don't really think about them too much because I've never found them to be consistent. They lag a lot, which just means I just need to practice them. So they're really cool strats, but they're just really advanced. So I just drive all the way there. This is still really fast and luckily optimal for the most part, just driving casually. It's been said that you can hardlock entering this door if there's too many lurkers around you. I've been fortunate enough to never experience this hardlock, so I just go straight into the door. And then I go to the top of the stairs to trigger the door, which you can hear. But then if you stay about halfway down the steps, it's actually faster to trigger that cutscene early, and catch the edge of the cutscene bubble on the halfway up the stairs, because the door, the top of the stairs doesn't have the cutscene bubble, and you have to go through the door and then down the ramp a bit to touch the cutscene, so that's even slower. And then for this part, I got trolled pretty hard here. I was afraid I was gonna die here, because usually when you get around here, if you take a lot of damage during the stadium, you'll actually be on like one hit KO this whole part, and it's scary because you're not on a vehicle, so you can just take damage anywhere. This death warp here, you saw me walk towards the carrier. I do that because I've accidentally mounted vehicles by spamming triangle after the death warp, because it doesn't position you. Like if there's a zoomer over you when you're by the carrier, it prioritizes the vehicle and it makes you get into that before you mount the carrier. So take like 2 steps towards it first. Here, I try to spin as I'm leaving that part every time, even if I'm not in danger of splatting, because sometimes if you're high enough, it respawns you after the cutscene in the air and you can splat. So I always just spin out of that cutscene. This part, the whole core fight, I got a 46, I think, in my PV. My gold is a 42. You can get as low as 39s, assuming you use the Peacemaker. So that's the example of you like a lot of runners will gain time on me here because you have the Peacemaker. This fight is just dependent on managing your spam sprays and just getting them consistent. Making sure every hit lands on him. You can get 10 hits on core at a time with these optimal spam sprays. And then if the fight is the same like almost every time, you can just watch this fight and just see how I do it, and then do this just about the same thing. Ricky taught me this setup, and it's really nice. It's consistent. I manipulate the way he moves so that he never does the triple shot, which is super slow and waste time, because he has iframes when he does any attack, and when he's, staggered on the ground, he has iframes, so you can't shoot him then. So I used to do this thing where I would just keep spamming my yellow, as he was on the ground or attacking me, and that's pointless and it wastes ammo, so just be really careful. But that's the whole gist of this run. That's the whole thing. That was really wordy, but I just wanted to cover as much as I can, because I figured this way, now if you miss something, you can just like rewind and then re-listen. So yeah, thank you for the 1 bit Mickey in my PV. I was really stoked to make this because I'd been kind of wanting to for a while, so I hope this like helps anybody with like those little tiny questions that pop up as you're watching a run. I hope I answered a lot of those. But yeah, so that's it. I'm just gonna cut stream and then immediately upload this to YouTube, and then try to see if I can get it on the SRC page. I'm gonna also link resources for this run in the YouTube upload. So yeah, oh, thank you, Smoker. Yeah, Someday I'll probably look into doing more of these commentaries for other categories and other things. But yeah. Oh, thank you, Javer. Yeah, I'm glad this helped. Yeah, so I'm gonna peace out. Thank you everybody for watching. Like I said, expect the cutscene run this week. I unfortunately didn't have an opportunity today, but as the incentive, I'm glad I could fit this in. So I really appreciate it. Catch y'all later.